we need to make sure we're making the right investments to capture our fair share of those shifting trade winds. Our business was largely built around those just-in-time inventory cycles when it absolutely positively had to be there, but we see just-in-time shifting to just-in-case.
The world's most famous investor, Warren Buffett, has always been an advocate of transportation and logistics. He likes the sector because, as he puts it, it's recession resistant. One of the biggest and most recognizable transport and logistics companies in the world is FedEx. And joining me now from the Qatar Economic Forum is Richard W. Smith, President and CEO of Airline and International for FedEx. Now, Richard, FedEx has celebrated 50 years in the business just this past year. And the company has since grown to become a Fortune 500 company. What is the secret sauce?
Well, I think it's a resilient culture that's been there since the very beginning of Federal Express, what's now known as FedEx. It started as Federal Express, and then we actually became a verb in the dictionary, and so we changed the logo to FedEx in the mid-90s because, well, it's not every company that becomes a verb, right? But from the very beginning, FedEx has been an underdog story. So the Arab oil embargo in the early 70s almost killed FedEx in its infancy. And I think that was where our culture of resilience was really born. And you've seen that over the years at various times. We expanded internationally at a time pre-open skies and made an acquisition of a company called Flying Tigers in '89 to secure vital air routes over the Pacific, which was a very bold move and got us into China before anyone was thinking about China. In the mid to late 90s, we looked at diversifying our portfolio greatly because our largest peer competitor at the time, UPS, who started as a ground parcel company, had built an airline. And when they were able to bundle air and ground pricing, they could go to rates we couldn't with customers. And we saw that as an existential crisis. So we went out, we diversified our business. We bought the Caliber companies largely for a company called RPS, which was UPS's largest competitor on the ground. And so we were then able to bundle those capabilities, and we've grown that business tremendously over the last 25 years or so. So FedEx has been a scrappy underdog story from the beginning, and I think our culture really plays a very big part of that. From the onset, we've had a PSP philosophy: people, service, profit. And it's a virtuous wheel. You invest in your people, take care of them from a safety perspective and training standpoint. You invest the profits into your people and into their development. They'll provide a superior service by giving greater discretionary effort, which brings you the profits that then you reinvest in the people. So that PSP philosophy has allowed us to be very resilient in the face of great adversity. And I think the only constant at FedEx is change, and that scrappiness is still there today.
Let's dive into FedEx's operations. What are they, and what's the importance to the business?
Sure. So we're a 50-year-old company, as you pointed out, and I would kind of bifurcate our history into those two periods. The first 25 years was largely, save the Flying Tigers acquisition in '89, it was largely organic growth. And then we entered into the next 25 years, which was this portfolio diversification period, where we grew through a lot of acquisitions. So we acquired RPS, a ground parcel company, which became FedEx Ground. We acquired two less than truckload companies that we put together, Watkins and American, that we put together to become FedEx Freight, the largest LTL carrier in North America. We bought a freight forwarding entity, two supply chain companies. We bought Kinko's, which became FedEx Office. So we diversified greatly over that period, but we ran those business units discreetly. We had essentially a mantra or an operating philosophy that said operate independently or compete collectively with one portfolio, operate independently, manage collaboratively. And that was how we ran those businesses. With the advent of e-commerce, and e-commerce representing the majority of the growth, we've now entered into what we call the One FedEx era, where we're bringing those networks together. And it's really the culmination of 50 years of network building through organic growth, through acquisition. We've assembled quite an incredible logistics machine. If you tally up all of the infrastructure, the investments, the vehicles, the people that we have, we operate over 700 aircraft, so the largest cargo airline on the planet. We have over 5,000 facilities, over 210,000 surface vehicles, and over 500,000 team members strong who deliver our Purple Promise every day. If you tally that all up, it represents the largest, or at least one of, I think it is the largest transportation logistics system ever assembled in the history of civilization. As we bring those capabilities together and we use the massive amounts of data that we generate every day, moving 15 million shipments around the world, to unlock efficiencies for our customers, we're becoming more efficient, more flexible, and the smartest logistics and transportation company on the planet. So it's really an exciting time. So the next 25 years, the One FedEx era, as I called it, is really the culmination of those 50 years of network building, and we're going to unleash those capabilities on the market to the benefit and delight of our customers.
Smart with data, and then also obviously a very well-known household brand in the US. We are here in the Middle East. What is FedEx doing here?
Well, obviously this is an exciting part of the world. I was just here in the Middle East back in February. We opened a new hub at Dubai World Cargo, a $350 million US dollar investment in the region. I went to Saudi Arabia because we see a lot of exciting activity there and a lot of investment in that market, and certainly have been to Qatar many times because of the growth that we see in this part of the world. Some of that, of course, organic and stemming from the investments that are being made here by those countries and diversifying their economies. Some of it due to supply chain diversification or de-risking, particularly coming out of the pandemic. We're seeing a lot of growth here, a lot of growth in India, Southeast Asia, Mexico, and Eastern Europe. So as the winds of trade shift, we need to make sure we're making the right investments at FedEx to capture our fair share of those shifting trade winds. As we talked about before we started the segment, we operate in 220 countries and territories around the globe. So we're already there. We service 99% of the world's GDP, but we want to make the right investments in the parts of the world where we see tremendous growth, and this is one of those parts of the world.
And this part of the world is certainly a very integral part of the global trade. In terms of the supply chain, do you see things coming fully back to normal where it was pre-pandemic?
The new normal, as I like to call it. Define normal. If you're talking about going back to pre-pandemic, just-in-time inventory cycles where you're very reliant on one major manufacturing basin, no, we're not going back to that. As I talked about, we're entering into this period of supply chain diversification or de-risking. And so our business was largely built around those just-in-time inventory cycles. We're the largest express company on the planet. So when it absolutely positively had to be there, it's FedEx. And we still provide those services for the customers that need it. But we see just-in-time shifting to just-in-case, right? And so now you have to be diverse in terms of where you source and where you manufacture. And that's what we see out there on the horizon. And so, of course, as I said, we're everywhere, but we want to make the right investments as companies, particularly our customers, move to a China +1 or even +2 or 3 strategy.
Yeah. Well, Richard, we know that FedEx was founded by your father, Frederick, in 1973. What are some of your earliest memories of realizing that your father had started and built one of America's greatest, biggest modern-day companies?
Well, you know, my upbringing was actually pretty normal. I'm from a family of 10, large family. We had a mother who kept us very, very grounded and kind of insulated from that until FedEx, I guess, got so large that we couldn't really ignore what a big deal it was. But for a long time when I was growing up, you know, we were kind of insulated from that. Being the oldest son, I used to go with my father to work when his office was at the Memphis hub, which is a huge node in our network and a very important one. It's our largest hub on the planet. And so I could kind of watch the company grow up alongside of me, or I grew up alongside of it. And I would kind of measure FedEx's progress as a business by how many planes, how large the hub facility was, and I watched it grow and expand over the years. I watched the airplanes get larger and larger. We started with Dassault Falcon 20 aircraft, about 14 of them in the early days. That's what FedEx started with. Today, as I mentioned, we have over 700 aircraft, and the fuselage of the Dassault Falcon would fit inside of the GE engines that power the Boeing 777s that we fly today. So it's been a remarkable journey just watching the hub in Memphis and watching the company grow and growing up alongside of it.
Wow. And what about you? Did you always know you wanted to work for FedEx, given that you spent time with your father?
No, I wanted to do anything but. I kind of, growing up from my vantage point as a young boy, I kind of thought what he did looked boring. And so I wanted to do anything but that. Now that I've come into the business, I came in after law school. After 3 years of law school, I kind of used my JD like an MBA, came to work for the company, never looked back. I fell in love with the mission and the people, the team members we have who are just incredible. And, it's become my calling, I guess, to come work for this incredible company. But I fell in love with it, and I realized that I was incredibly wrong about his job being boring. Let's just say I've got 99 problems and boredom ain't one. But we move the most critical commerce on the planet. And so you never know what each day will bring. And when I talk about falling in love with the mission, you never know when you'll get that urgent phone call or an email from someone, a friend of a friend who has an infant that needs an artificial heart delivered to a hospital. And you got to make sure that there are eyes on that shipment from pickup all the way through delivery. And now, of course, we're using artificial intelligence and sensor-based logistics so that we've got positive control of really critical goods like that. So the mission is so important. We carry the most critical things in the world in our network. So I fell in love with it. I've never looked back.
And I think some of us got a little insight into how FedEx operates through the movie Castaway, where there is literally a ticking clock.
That's it.
Every single second counts.
Yeah, and that's really our genesis, right? Is that absolutely positively on-time transportation. And as I said, we still believe we're the best in the world at it, and we've got the data to back that up, I think. But as the world changes, right, we're seeing a lot more growth in e-commerce and deferred customer shipping, where it doesn't have to be there so quickly as long as it's there reliably and they can count on it, right? They're willing to, instead of a 1 to 2 day international shipment or an absolutely positively overnight shipment, they're willing to internationally wait 3 to 5 days or 2 or 3 days domestically. So we have a broad portfolio that caters to the needs of all of our customers, from the urgent medical device all the way to e-commerce or deferred air freight.
Now, you were part of the U.S. government's COVID-19 task force, where you helped distribute roughly half of the COVID-19 vaccines for the U.S. How did that experience impact you? And did it change the way you think about, you talked about the mission,
Yeah.
But further to that?
It just brought that mission home on a very personal scale. So before the vaccines, actually, we were involved in the movement of PPE, personal protective equipment, into the U.S. and Canada, and ventilators into Mexico. And we were moving these critical equipment, critical supplies, critical PPE all over the world. And we, of course, having the largest cargo airline on the planet, moved more of it than anybody. And I think if you took in aggregate all of that movement of PPE and other medical equipment and supplies, it represents the largest mobilized airlift since the Great Berlin Airlift. And we played a huge part in that. And my sister, I have a sister who's an ER nurse and Naval Reserve medic, and she was deployed to one of the big hospitals in New York when it was the epicenter of the pandemic in the United States. And she said that the nurses there would actually cheer when the FedEx Express driver would pull up with fresh PPE to keep them in the fight. So it was very personal for me. And then obviously, as the vaccine came on and we were tapped to assist with Operation Warp Speed, moving roughly half of the vaccines for the nation, hundreds of millions of doses of vaccine, that was an awesome mission. And it was incredible to be part of it. And it just showed that all the investments we'd made in our network and our infrastructure, in technology, the team members, really came to bear for not just the United States, but for humanity, because we delivered those vaccines to over 50 countries and territories.
Operation Warp Speed. What a great name.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears now to innovation. How is technology, you mentioned data before, but how is that transforming your business?
Oh, in massive ways. I mean, obviously, automation and robotics continue to progress, and those are very important for us. But talking about data, we're a data-rich company. We move 15 million shipments every day, so we spin off a lot of data. And now we're able to use that data and kind of weaponize it to make our operations more efficient, or even bring digital solutions and insights to bear for our customers utilizing that data. Our new CEO, Raj Subramaniam, calls it FedEx 2.0. It's the building of a digital solutions business on top of the physical networks that we've spent 50 years building and acquiring. And we're now, as I said, unleashing in this one FedEx mode for our customers to become the most efficient, most flexible, and smartest supply chain on the planet. Well, that's the physical transformation. Raj's vision for FedEx 2.0, which is a brilliant vision and spot on, is to build this digital solutions business on top of it so you can provide those types of services to customers, those types of insights based on that data that we have. And it's really powering everything we do at FedEx, and it is our future, and it's going to be a big foundational part of the next 50 years of FedEx.
So I imagine if you were to talk about the biggest priority for FedEx right now, is it this transformation that you're going through, or is there something else?
I think it's those two things. I think it's the physical transformation of our networks, the unleashing the full power of the end-to-end capabilities we have, whether that's moving an e-commerce shipment, moving a critical medical device, moving a big palletized skid of freight door to door via our surface networks, through our air networks, through our ramp and hub infrastructure, and back out to the end customer, and doing that incredibly efficiently, being able to offer all those different modes of transport I talked about to the customers very reliably. This one FedEx approach that we're taking, unleashing the full power of the networks we've assembled, is incredibly profound. But on top of that, this digital revolution, this FedEx 2.0, and building the digital solutions on top of it is equally as profound. So I would say those two things are the keys to what's next for FedEx.
And let's wrap up with your prediction of the future. So we talked about 50 years already that the business has been established. Let's say the next 20, what does that look like?
Well, the only constant at FedEx, I tell my team all the time, is change, right? So, everywhere you are, there's FedEx, and we plan to be there for the next 25, next 50 years, no matter what the world brings. So as we see a lot of protectionism out there, we see supply chains shifting to adjust with it, FedEx will be there adjusting right along with it and modernizing our business and adapting and getting more efficient, more flexible, and smarter through the power of our data and using things like AI to really power our business into the future. So everywhere you are, there will be.
No, great. Thank you very much, Richard. A big thank you to our special guest, Richard W. Smith, President and CEO of Airline and International for FedEx. Thank you for being on this special edition of I See Your Trade at the Qatar Economic Forum. And thanks for tuning in to episode 12 of I See Your Trade, season 4. I See Your Trade is brought to you by IC Markets, a leading high-performance trading provider. Trade up to IC Markets.